You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL and the Double A, as we do every week with the college football segment. Episode 86, we are back on a Friday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with us on the show. Hope y'all had a blessed Christmas, great Christmas Eve, safe travels, enjoyed all the time with family and friends. Really remembering the reason for the season. As always, before we get started, y'all make sure to like and share that stream wherever you may be watching, please, and thank you. Super chat, super like, super thanks. Any way you want to donate to the show, get at us on social media, and we'll share that info. Subscribe as well so you never miss the post. The QR code for every bit of social media and podcast content. You guys already know what the deal is. We've got an absolute packed show for tonight, giving you our picks and predictions for the quarterfinals, all of the bowl games in the college football playoffs, discussing another NFL legend headed to HBCUs, and much more here on the show. As always, before we jump in, man, welcome in, Alan. I love having you in, bro. How are you?
Doing good, man. Happy holidays to everybody out there, and can't wait to get into this show. It's going to be a good one.
Yes, totally agree, man. As always, before we get started with the show, guys, y'all please make sure to get in the chat, get in the comments, and let us know how you're feeling about episode 86, because it is a packed one. Again, we're discussing Carson Beck being out for the playoffs, the picks and predictions of the CFP quarterfinals, which we're going to go ahead and jump right into. We've got I don't think it's the first game of the weekend, but this is the order that we're taking it in on the show. We've got Penn State going against Boise State. Penn State, one of the biggest favorites of the weekend, actually the second biggest favorite, 10.5-point favorite in this game. Give me some of your predictions. What do you think some takeaways are going to be heading into this one, man?
Well, I said it a couple weeks ago. Drew Aller is just improving week to week. We saw him in that Oregon Big Ten championship game. He was doing really well, producing at the quarterback position. I think he could be a key factor in this game. I think he is probably the better quarterback in this situation against Boise State. But then again, you do have Ashton Jeanty, an elite running back who can get through anything. It seems like that guy could run through a brick wall, no problem. But I do think Penn State will probably win by about 10 points. I think that's a healthy prediction. 27-17 is what I'm currently seeing. I think it could be a pretty good scoring game at first, but I think Penn State ultimately takes it away. And you were right. I do believe it is the first game of the weekend. I think it's the Fiesta Bowl, so I think that's the one we get on Friday.
Yep.
So
no, that'll be the Tuesday game, because that'll be the Tuesday game on New Year's Eve, and the New Year's Day are the other three.
Right. Tuesday. My bad.
Yep. No, you're good.
Like Saturday, Yeah. Like regular season. Good. But that's my prediction. 10 points, 27-17, Penn State. I think they're just the better team in this situation.
100%. Sounds very solid, no doubt. Yeah, Tuesday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, 7:30 on ESPN is when this game will be kicking off. It is the only game on New Year's Eve. I kind of wish they would do 2 and 2. I hate how they pack all 3 in on New Year's Day, but they know that it's a holiday and probably assume everyone's going to be off and be able to have those eyes glued to the television. Again, great takes, great predictions there, man. I think the biggest story that you're looking at in this game is obviously Penn State's defense against Ashton Jeanty. Of course, when you look at other aspects of this game, every other bit of Penn State's game outside of the run game outmatches Boise State, and we know that's because of Ashton Jeanty, who we both believe should have possibly won that Heisman Trophy. 2,497 rushing yards, 29 touchdowns. Let's just give him the 2,530 for God's sake, because it is arguably the best college football season we've seen from a running back. 6 times this year of rushing for over 200 yards. He did it in the first and last games that he played of the season, and of course looking to do it again in this one. He hasn't rushed for any less than 140 all season. So this is going to be a big thing that Penn State is going to be coming out to look at. And James Franklin already came out. You see some of the notifications, notifications breaking on Twitter, and then obviously Bleacher Report. Their main focus is to take a look at Ashton Jeanty and be able to shut him down. And when you look at what Penn State's defense has done all year, 9th in defensive yards per carry at 3.1. Running backs are getting about 3 yards per carry whenever they touch the ball for a rush against Penn State. And Penn State is 6th in the country as well at giving up just 100 in total rush yards per game. I think Penn State wins this game 31-20. I just think Boise State is very outmatched. I'm not counting on their quarterback or any of their other skill position players in the wide receiver room to really provide anything here. Yes, can they possibly make it happen? Because Boise State, sneakily enough, averages 38 points per game. They are the number 4 offense in the country. They're the number 6 offense in the country in yards per game at 459. And of course, we know they have the absolute workhorse back there in Ashton Jeanty. I think he'll still be able to have a big game. I don't know if it'll be 140, 200 plus rushing yard game, which is kind of the standard for Ashton, because again, Penn State does have the pieces in place to be able to really take this one. And even Boise State's defense, when you look at Andy Kotelnicki and all of Penn State's weapons that they've been toying with throughout the season, between Drew Aller getting better week over week, Katron Allen, obviously Nick Singleton, almost said Eric Singleton coming out of Georgia Tech. Crazy portal move there. We'll be talking about that on an upcoming episode. But having Singleton as well, even some of those other wide receivers, Tyler Warren as well at the tight end position, providing some value. So I just think Boise State's defense is going to be pretty outmatched in this one. So give me Penn State to win this one 31-20. Boise State's run comes to an end here. I don't think there's really any world where Boise State can win unless Ashton Jeanty specifically goes off. Penn State can make more mistakes in this game and win more than Boise State can. I'm not saying that Boise doesn't deserve to be here, because you and I both sat here a couple weeks ago and said Ashton Jeanty should have won the Heisman. He should have won. And it's weird to say, well, if Travis Hunter didn't exist and didn't do what he did, then he wouldn't have won it. That's correct. But when you bring in the context of the two-way player, people that watch the show, they understand the tirade that we were kind of on with.
Oh, absolutely.
On to the second prediction here, which this will actually fall. Looks like I actually might have done them in order. I did the Georgia game ahead of the
I think you did.
Game. But either way, CFP quarterfinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Number 5, Texas. Number 4, Arizona State. It's going to be played in Atlanta at 1 p.m. on ESPN. Texas, another huge favorite. Second week in a row, they are the biggest favorite of the weekend. 13.5 points against Arizona State. Give me some of your picks and predictions going through this one, man.
I wanted to point out something. Everybody pretty much in this, what is it, the quarterfinal?
Yeah, quarterfinals. Yep.
Yeah, quarterfinal.
I almost called it the semis too.
Yeah, same. Everybody in this quarterfinal is pretty much averaging almost 30 points a game.
Yep.
In offense. So that's what makes it really interesting, because I know George is darn near 40 points per game. But I digress.
Actually, no, Georgia's averaging like 31. Oddly.
30, yeah, that's right. 31. Yeah. They were 31.
Averaging 31, giving up 21.
Yeah. And Texas is right around that margin as well.
Right.
Texas, I think, is going to win by about 13.
Wow.
Just because, I know Arizona State absolutely boat raced Iowa State.
Right.
And that's part of what got them their seed. I could definitely see that. Because, they did play some lights out football in that game. Kenny Dillingham got his guys ready to play.
Yeah.
But I just think they're going to meet their match with Texas. They haven't played anybody with a caliber like Texas. And I know we banter back and forth about have they really played anybody, and I can see your argument there as well. But I do think they're considerably better than someone like an Arizona State. Now, part of me is hoping I eat crow on this one, because that's like an unsung hero of the playoffs is Arizona State. They've gone farther than anybody ever imagined.
For sure.
So
overachieved, playing with house money at this point.
Exactly. It's like, hey, the ball's in your court, man. What are you doing? So, but I still see Texas. They just got the better roster.
For sure.
They got the better quarterback. They got the better running backs, receivers. They're just elite talent, top to bottom. They damn near beat Georgia that second time, and it's hard to beat the same team twice. It really is.
Yeah, it is. Georgia toughing it out with a backup quarterback. All the respect to both teams in that one.
Yeah, and Sarkisian has had his guys playing SEC football for the last 2-3 years, even before coming to the SEC. Just to get them prepared for what it's going to be like. And honestly, their first season, they make the SEC championship.
Yep.
That's really good. Steve Sarkisian from that Nick Saban tree, so he's going to have his guys ready to play, and it's going to be to a tune about 34-21 is what I see.
Yeah, I'm not too far off on that score prediction there. I'll save it for the end of the take. 100% agree with you about Texas being the better team overall, outmatching Arizona State. Texas should win this game by 14 plus points. And when you look at the roster aspect, like you said, coming into the year, Texas was ranked 4th in terms of roster strength, while Arizona State was ranked
Correct.
30th. Only part of you I'm going to push back on is Texas does not have the better running back. Cam Scattaboo kind of quietly over there with Arizona
True. I
State.
didn't think about
Really,
that.
only of one of the bigger highlights of the team, about 1,600 rushing yards, almost 20 rushing touchdowns. So not on an Ashton type of level, but nobody can be on an Ashton type of level
No,
unless you were a Barry Sanders, a Reggie Bush, a Mark Ingram, a
Bo
Derrick
Jackson,
Henry. We know, a Bo Jackson. Some of the names that Ashton might have maybe not played
Dalvin
like,
Cook.
but right, but kind of resembled. And Scattaboo is really the big time highlight of that Arizona State offense. But when you look at Texas has the second best defense in the country in terms of points and in terms of yards. They're the 9th best defensive rush yards per game, well up there in yards per carry defensively as well. So running backs do not have it easy on this Texas defense. And you got to ask yourself, can Scattaboo possibly find a way on or through this Texas defensive line, even make plays up into that secondary? Because that's going to be the only way, again, kind of like Penn State against Boise State. Texas can make more mistakes in this game and win more than Arizona State can. I don't see a world in which Arizona State wins this game, much like Boise State, without having a huge game out of their running back. So kind of similar matchups, big underdogs, big time rushing games here. One team majorly outmatched by the other. And we just understand that it's a difference of talent. It's a difference of culture. These football programs have been built at very elite levels, and two great teams that are here in front of us, but Texas being favored by 13.5, I think it's no shocker there. Arizona State comes in, 199 rush yards per game, 18th best in the country, 42 carries per game, which is a little staggering, 12th best in the country, and actually 61% of the time also they run the football. But I got Texas on in this game easily, actually by a little worse of a standard than you did, 35-14. I think Texas wins this one comfortably. I can see Scattaboo maybe getting a couple of touchdowns here, but again, second best defense in the country. Texas has been in a couple of dogfights with Georgia, which is really the best part of their resume. So I think they're going to kind of resemble a lot of that, encapsulate a lot of that in this game and ultimately be able to go on to win. And, a big shout out to Kenny Dillingham getting his squad here. I mean, no question about that. But when you look at what Sarkisian's done, you mentioned it with the SEC play, they've been one of the better teams all year, whether I like it or not. We're going to see them have a probably the biggest win of the weekend, if not have it, being Penn State. Now on to one of the better two matchups of the weekend. We've got Notre Dame against Georgia. Georgia, maybe kind of shockingly, in my opinion, being down Carson Beck the way that they played over the back half of the season. They are 2.5-point favorites walking into this one. This is the All-State Sugar Bowl. Super late game, 8:45 p.m. on ESPN in New Orleans at the Caesars Superdome. Give me some of your picks and predictions, man, for one of the better matchups of the back half of the weekend.
Before I get into it, I wanted to just touch on two things real quickly, just briefly.
Yeah, it's your show too, bro.
You mentioned Kenny Dillingham getting his players in shape, and so did I. And man, I loved seeing his reaction when they got into the playoffs and their seating.
Oh yeah,
that dude
Arizona
jumped out.
State's
That dude jumped
room.
out of his seat so
That was
far.
Kenny?
Yeah,
I thought that was one of the players. That is crazy.
Dude,
that was a damn
out of
coach.
his seat. He was like, "Let's go!" And I'm like, "Good on you, man. You were great."
And then you got Penn State over here.
Yeah, just
all buttoned up with white but you know what?
Looking like Mike Norvell when he got cheated last year.
Yeah. You know why I like that about Penn State? That's like a little bit of a gimmick in a way, kind of like optics. Like, we're not hype. We're not sad. We're in this damn thing, and we're going to come to play, and y'all are going to see how we played against Oregon, how they've played against, obviously, in the first round. And then, versus you've had some reactions from teams on camera in the past, and they're just like, oh. Anyways, go ahead. I love the reaction from ASU.
I like the stoicism from them. I mean, Penn State, that stoicism.
Gotta respect it.
I respect it. It's like, we know we're supposed to be here. You see how close we played Oregon? You see how close we played Ohio State?
They put the world on notice after the way that they played
they
Oregon,
did.
Man. They got my respect after that one.
They played a bad game against Ohio State. They really did.
Yeah.
And James Franklin's just got a problem with Ohio State, just like Ryan Day's got a problem with Michigan.
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yep.
At
Just
the
like
end of the
Brian
day,
Kelly has a problem with Alabama.
Exactly. Just like Tennessee had a problem with Florida when Peyton Manning was there. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
But anyway, the second caveat I wanted to add before we move on, there's a rain delay between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt right now.
Really?
And Vanderbilt is boat racing Georgia Tech bad. It's
really?
Like, hold on. It's like 35-13 in the fourth quarter, and Vanderbilt's got 14 points in the fourth, and it's still on a rain delay. Yeah. Brent Key apparently was popping off pretty hard, but
I just see a tweet. Georgia Tech Vandy currently in a weather delay. Some guy 47 minutes ago. Some guy decided to run the length of the field, evade security, hit the Heisman pose, throw a football into the stands, and then eventually give himself up.
yeah. I was looking forward to that matchup too. I mean,
Yeah.
But it looks like Vanderbilt's taking care of business. But anyway, into the Georgia game. I think it's going to be closer than people realize.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Notre
This is
Dame.
going to be a fantastic matchup.
Listen, Notre Dame honestly might be my dark horse of the playoffs, and the reason why
Yeah.
is they, outside of that Northern Illinois blunder that they had, they've took care of business consistently all year long.
Yeah.
And they're pretty decent at every position. Every phase of the game, they take care of it. They annihilated Indiana. That score doesn't reflect how that game went at
Right.
all.
Nope.
And you know me, I'm not a Notre Dame fan by any means.
Right.
But I do see UGA getting the victory in this one. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be I think UGA, because last time I looked at the Vegas odds, it had Notre Dame favored by 1.5. But
Really?
yeah, but that was days ago. So I don't know what it's like.
Georgia's favored by 2.5 now.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's been teeter-tottering back and forth.
Yeah, it's a pick 'em. It really is.
It really
this game's
is.
Gonna be a coin flip.
Because as soon as the matchup got announced, it was like, oh, Notre Dame's favored, and then the next morning UGA's favored, and then it's just been teeter-tottering back
and then you have the news break on Monday about Beck being out for the year, so it's
right,
it's
exactly.
been back and forth for sure.
And I think that's honestly going to help them. I know we're going to get into that more with Carson Beck, but I think Gunnar Stockton is really good. From what we saw of him, he's delivering. Kid's got heart. He's got poise. He can do it, man. He can really do it. I'm a fan. I'm a fan already from what I've seen, man. UGA doesn't win that SEC championship. Gunnar doesn't go in. I'll stand on that. I know Carson Beck got the game-winning handoff, with a broke arm, but
that bro really just gave him credit for the game-winning handoff. That's what I'm talking about. That's my dog right there.
You know what, man? UGA by 3, 31-28 final score. I think it's going to be a dogfight back and forth all game long. Sugar Bowl is always usually a pretty good one.
Right. I wish it was a Rose Bowl.
Right, don't we all? That's the best one to play.
They saved the best matchup for the weekend to be in the Rose Bowl, so I ain't even mad.
Yeah, I ain't even mad.
I ain't even mad.
Yeah, Oregon's going to get a chance to redeem themselves out of that national championship a few years ago, 12 years ago.
I can't believe they've never won a Natty. I
can't
believe they've never won a national championship. I know.
They won against Ohio State, and they won against Auburn with Cam Newton. But yeah, UGA by
stopping that Auburn team.
No, not at all. They were just lights out. They creeped back 24 points on Bama. But anyway, UGA by 3, 31-28. Final prediction. I just think Kirby Smart has a little bit more experience than Marcus Freeman in these coaching situations. The guys played against some of the most elite talent you can face. And he's been in some of the most dire situations, win or, go home, basically. He's had his defeat in the national championship once, and I see him going the distance in this game.
That's right. I second everything that you just said there, man. Georgia's built for these types of moments, especially without the quarterback now. Like, everybody else is just stepping up.
Won, though.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not shocked if Notre Dame wins either, because again, this is a coin flip of a game. I'm taking my dogs, of course, even if I wasn't a Dogs fan. I'm just simply taking them because if you look at Georgia's schedule, how they've played this year, they're built for these types of games. Kirby Smart gets his guys motivated, and I think anyone listening in on this show, anyone maybe in the college football world outside of a diehard Notre Dame fan would tell you that Kirby Smart is head, shoulders, knees, and toes, haircut, visor, everything better than Marcus Freeman at coaching football. And that's not a knock on Marcus Freeman at all, but we know what Kirby Smart has done, and you just alluded to a lot of it there. And you look at Georgia, they're the 12th best in the country quietly at passing yards per game, and you remember the month long of Carson Beck's interceptions, and you feel like this team is just not good at quarterback. But when you look up, wow, Carson Beck actually led the SEC in
Someone hit the
passing
refresh
touchdowns.
button.
100%. And when you get a chewing by Kirby Smart, when you have Mike Bobo kind of slowing down the game, because if you lose 3-4 games, you're not in this thing. Georgia's not
No.
where they're at now if Carson Beck does not make the adjustments. But they're 96th in the country in rush yards per game, which clearly we know they've struggled with a Trevor Etienne, Broderick Robinson, Cash
Hard
Jones,
to get
Nate
him going.
Frazier. Yeah, just trying to
Like an
keep
old
everybody
lawnmower.
healthy. Exactly. Trying to keep everybody healthy has been the hardest part. And you just come out then and lose your QB1 who helped them get here. But thankfully, Georgia's running back room looks to be healthy. I don't think Georgia wins that game without Trevor Etienne playing the way that he did, even though he did have minimal touches against Texas in the SEC title game. And then obviously, the way that Gunner was able to look in that game as well, I thought was great. But more importantly, Georgia's running back room being healthy is going to take a lot of pressure off of Gunner Stockton, because a burning question in this game is, what is Gunner Stockton going to look like? I mean, last time we saw him, it was a minimal playbook, heavy runs, as creative as Georgia could get, but it wasn't anything spectacular. I mean, we saw an ugly interception, and really his highlight was kid sees the SEC championship win on the goal line, and he just takes off for a beeline, gets up after getting basically smeared, and then, of course, Georgia wins the game. But Georgia's had 3.5 weeks since that game, about 24, 25 days, so almost 4 weeks since that game to get more reps for Gunner, make a nice game plan for him. Kirby, I'm not worried about Kirby. It's if Bobo can mesh with Gunner to create that chemistry. So, yes, we're gonna see agreed. We're gonna see a hiccup in Georgia's offense, in which we know they have to start quick, but it can't be frighteningly noticeable, because Notre Dame is going to pick up on that.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
You just, again, that's I believe in Georgia. I believe in Kirby Smart. They're built for these types of moments. They faced adversity all year. Can Georgia's run defense stand up against Notre Dame and Jeremiah Love, who just went and quietly had a great rushing game against Indiana, which Indiana didn't have a great rushing defense. Yes, it was number 1 in the country, but when you look at the people they played, it wasn't that admirable, just like their strength of schedule. But not only that rush defense, can the defense look better than it did the back half of the season, missing tackles, getting out-angled, outplayed in space badly? We remember the Alabama game, remember the Ole Miss game, we remember the game against Texas. I mean, Quinn threw for over 350 against us, and people are like, oh, Quinn Ewers had a bad game. Well, he was dicing up an SEC defense. Oh, well, it's Georgia's defense. Exactly. It's not the Georgia defense that we've come to know and love, but it still only gives up 21 points a game.
Riley Leonard is to be feared. I mean, he's good.
He's
not great, but he's good.
Right. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. I love that you bring that point up as I'm finishing this out. Georgia's got to start fast. I think this is the most pivotal game for Mike Bobo all year. He's got to be on point with the play calling. He's got a new dynamic of quarterback at play. We know that Gunner can move around in the pocket. I want to see some design runs. I want to see some quarterback draws, some quarterback powers, maybe a type of option, maybe a trick play or two in there. Nothing crazy, but get the kid comfortable, let him take some shots down the field. I mean, you built up such a great passing offense for Carson Beck. Do your best to mimic that for Gunner. We got to get Delp, Lovett, ETN, all their playmakers in space early. Go ahead.
I'll piggyback off that because I feel Gunner will be good. The reason why I say that is Georgia's quarterback room is always elite. Well, not always, but
as a diehard, I'd push back. But
in recent years, it's been decent. Even when Stetson was a backup, you could all right, let's say
from to Stetson was a pretty nice handoff. I must.
It was a nice handoff, right? And Stetson grinded to get there. And even if Stetson went down, I had faith that the guy next in line could deliver because I knew he knew the playbook. I knew he knew what to do and what not to do, because Kirby's always got his man prepared. He learned that from Nick.
Yep. Preparation is his best damn friend, and I can't lie, I'm relishing in it, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna hold Kirby as close as I can for the rest of my fandom.
Kirby has arguably coached under the 2 greatest college football coaches ever.
Yep.
Bobby Bowden and Nick Saban.
I did not know that Kirby coached under Bobby.
He was a graduate assistant at Florida State. That was his first job.
Heard that.
Yeah, he actually recruited a guy to Georgia because of that, early on. Because, he's like, oh, I know you're not going to make the roster here in Florida State. You can go to Georgia. You can always do good there.
Right.
And he did.
Yeah.
But because Mark Richt, Bobby, all them, they're all, Kirby loves Mark Richt, and
Yeah.
Mark Richt was, Bobby's coordinator for the
Right.
longest time.
Yep.
But yeah, he was a GA under Bobby, and he actually coached with Will Muschamp, and then he went to coach with Kirby. So
Yep.
he's got the skills, and that's why Will Muschamp was on his roster or
Yep.
on his coaching
On his
staff
coaching
at
staff.
Georgia. They won a national championship too.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Love it. Yeah, you look, Notre Dame comes in. They're actually the second best offense in the country, 39 points per game. Third best defense in the country at 14 points per game. Second in yards per carry offensively, 6.5 yards per carry, which is absolutely nuts for college football. But you mentioned Riley Leonard. Notre Dame's not a strong passing offense. I mean, you can argue that Riley Leonard didn't look that great against his opposition in Curtis Rourke in the last round. And when you just look on the season, they're 99th in the country, passing yards per game, 197. I'm personally not that afraid of Riley Leonard. Now, I know Georgia's given up the rushing yards to Jalen Milroe, over 100. Jackson Dart was able to scramble around on us. You look at the fact that Haynes King, obviously, in the classic 8 overtime thriller, he was able to do some things as well. But I just personally believe maybe outside of Jalen Milroe, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say. I don't fear Riley Leonard. Let me just say this. I don't fear Riley Leonard the way that I feared those other quarterbacks. I just
That's
don't. I really don't.
understandable.
And Notre Dame has not been a very fearful passing offense all year, in my opinion, and just looking into the way that,
It could
things have
just
played
be the
out for both
system that he's
teams.
in.
Right,
Because I
for
remember when
sure.
he was under Mike Elko, he was something else. He was pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
At Duke, he was really great.
Right. Right. And then you look at the fact that, Notre Dame runs the hell out of the football. I mean, a guy like Jeremiah Love is going
Yeah,
to
they
give you a
do.
lot of production week in
They
and
play
week
like
out.
an SEC team sometimes
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
run game.
They do. 100%. I've got Georgia winning this one. I see a defensive battle here. Georgia is about the 25th best defense in the country. Obviously, Notre Dame number 3. I'll take Georgia 24-21 in one of the tighter matchups of the weekend. The Dogs will advance to the semifinals to who will they be playing if they win? They'll be playing Penn State. And I got a nice date with my boy Sanjay to be able to watch that one, barring that game turns out that way. Last pick and prediction of the CFP quarterfinals, first one ever in the 12-team playoff. Ohio State also favored by 2.5 points, kind of oddly to me, over Oregon. Rematch of the game of the year when it happened earlier in Eugene in Autzen Stadium. What a game. Dan Lanning with a masterclass. Same with Ryan Day. How do you see this one playing out, Alan?
So the reason they have the nod, I think, Ohio State, that is because of how bad they beat Tennessee this weekend. That
That's
score
fair.
doesn't reflect nothing. They were
Right.
beating them early on. I knew that game was over by the
21
second
nothing in the
quarter.
first quarter, bro.
I knew
That
that
game was
game was
over halfway
over.
through the first. Yep.
Like, we were unwrapping gifts and talking and having fun at my house,
Yeah.
and that game was going on in the background. I was like,
Yeah.
"Damn."
Right.
I was
Nico
like
wasn't going to be able to overcome
I was
that. I
like,
love
"All right,
Nico, but he's
turn
a
that
true
off."
freshman quarterback for a reason.
I was like, "Turn that off."
Yep.
Of course, my
Yep.
mom in the background, she a diehard Georgia fan like you are. She's like, "Yeah, hell with Tennessee, go Ohio State." She back there going off, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? Yeah, I can't
Mm-hmm.
even push back on that, Mom. But I digress. Eh, Look, I think it's going to go very similarly to how it did the first time, because these teams, it seems like, this is just almost like it's almost like Georgia and Ohio State in that one game a few years back with CJ Stroud. Remember that?
Man,
That
don't
was
I, brother?
arguably one of the best college games aside from the 2017 Rose Bowl that I
Yeah.
think
Which
I've
also
ever
included
seen.
Georgia.
Yeah, those are two of the best spectacles I've ever seen, besides the
Uh-huh.
2010 BCS National Championship and the
Yep.
2013 BCS National Championship. These are some of the best games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think Oregon's still going to emerge victorious in this one. I just have
Same.
faith in Dylan Gabriel. I have faith
Yeah.
in Dan Lanning. Dan
Yeah.
Lanning's got some grit. He's got his players ready.
Yeah.
He comes from elite coaching trees. He's got elite talent. Ryan Day, I think, they're going to Oregon's going to pick up on those vulnerabilities that they showcased during the Michigan game and even in the Nebraska game early on in the season,
Yep.
or midway through the season, I should say. They're going to pick up on those vulnerabilities. They're going to look at those. They're going to look at what they did great against Tennessee. They're going to see what they can do to outperform them.
Yep.
And I see the Ducks coming out on top on this one because they've been the best team all year long.
Yeah.
They've played the Boise State already. They've played the Ohio State already. Now they're about to play them again.
Yeah.
And, and they played Penn State in the Big Ten championship. They beat them. They got so many notches in their belt, it ain't funny. So I see them winning by 1. It's going to be close, too close. 28-27.
28-27. Yeah. Yeah. I've got pretty close prediction there as well, man. It's going to be a great game. I think this will be the best matchup of the weekend. Obviously a rematch of one of the best games of the year, like we stated.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we came into the segment. And I mean, this is the 2 of the 3 best teams in college football right now.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And wouldn't shock me if the Buckeyes won.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, this is going to be one of the better matchups of the weekend. I believe really the 3 best teams right now that are left are Ohio State, Oregon, and then my dogs, no doubt. And when you look at Ohio State and Oregon, they are maybe the 2 most balanced teams in the country. Oregon's top 12 in offensive and defensive points and yards. 53% of the time they're rushing the ball. 47% of the time they're passing the ball. They're second in completion percentage, of course, with one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And Dillon Gabriel, 8th in the country at yards per pass at 8.8, which is very impressive as well. Now, of course, you look on the flip side, Ohio State, they're the best defense in the country without a question. Also very balanced with the same, really the same, close to the same percentages, of rush and pass plays that, kind of that Oregon resembles as well. And Ohio State's very disciplined. They're top 10 in the country in penalties and penalty yards per game in terms of not having them drawn/thrown on them. Huge coaching matchup. I mean, Dan Lanning and Ryan Day, you couldn't ask for anything better. Again, you insert Kirby Smart, and that's probably 3 of the best coaches in college football. You would, put a guy like Steve Sarkisian in there as well. No question. I like what Dan Lanning brings to the table just a little more than Ryan Day. I mean, Ryan Day, yes, is a veteran. He's a seasoned guy in this league. We know what he's been able to do. But when you look at Dan Lanning won this matchup the first time, I just think he flat out outsmarted Ryan Day last time that they played. And Dan Lanning has just had a better resume and a better season overall than a guy like Ryan Day did. I mean, when you come out and lose to Michigan, are you serious?
Yeah.
And then obviously your other loss is Oregon, but it's only by 1.
Game.
So no one's going to really knock you for that, for losing to what was the best team in college football, really, really all season. And then you have a great quarterback matchup too, which I think Oregon has the advantage with Dillon Gabriel over Will Howard. But I think both of these guys are going to come out and put up numbers. I like Dillon as the better decision maker and overall just the better elite player in this one. Caleb Downs, obviously that transfer out of Alabama over to Ohio State. I said Caleb Downs versus Will Howard and Tez Johnson. That's funny. Caleb Downs versus Dillon Gabriel and Tez Johnson is going to be huge. Is he able to read Dillon Gabriel? Of course, Tez Johnson, one of the better receivers in college and one of those main pivotal points of that Oregon offense as well. And then you've got Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith versus that Oregon defense, which is one of the best in the country as well. Alan, I think this game's going to come down to whoever holds the ball last and wins the turnover battle will win this football game. And when you look back
holds the ball more,
that's right. And when you look back at when they played earlier in the year and Oregon won 32-31 back on October 12th.
Yep.
When you look at, they held the ball actually 7 minutes less than Ohio State did. I just think they had bigger plays and bigger moments.
Right.
But Ohio State also
can get to your head.
Right. And when you look at the fact that Oregon won the turnover battle in that game as well, remember with the intentional kick where it kind of doinked off the Ohio State player's leg, and Oregon recovers it. I mean, that was just a great play right there. There was reports that was intentional, and
that was some Auburn, Georgia stuff.
Yeah. Fuck you for that. And they're all
that Nick Marshall shit, dude.
You know what I mean? It's just the it's you got my mind boggled now, man. But really, whoever holds the ball last, and Yeah, it really was. It was a heck of a game, and I mean, for Georgia to be able to battle back and lose the way that they did, it reminds me of the Tennessee game too, where they win us on the
Oh, the
Hail
Hail
Mary. But
Mary
yep,
2016.
yep, yep.
I
Alvin
hated that.
Kamara,
That made me
Josh
sick.
Dobbs. That's when I knew Kamara was him. But
Yeah,
whoever holds the ball last in this game, whoever wins the turnover battle, I think will win. But Oregon in the last game won the turnover battle. But Ohio State, remember, had that awful drive mishap with the clock. You remember that? Will Howard couldn't get the snap off. Dan Lanning's putting 12 men on the field. It just kind of, shits the bed on the field as it happens. And that's how Ohio State ends up losing that game because Will Howard
right.
slides down to end it. So it's like, who's going to come out and win this one? But I've got a shootout, really, man. Give me a final score 31-28. I don't see a defensive battle because whenever a team of these two pedigrees matches up, I mean, I don't expect anything different from when they met back in October. Maybe not as big of points, but, I see 31-28. You can maybe throw a 27-24. They won. Oregon won 32-31. That was the best win of the season for them. For sure. If it's not 31-28, I could see a 27-24, maybe like a 27-21. I mean, you got the matchup of the 7th and the 8th best offenses in the country in terms of points per game. Both teams are also 8th and 5th in yards per pass, so they like to air the ball out as well. So we got a lot of stuff that's really going into the picks and predictions of this one. This has been episode 86 of the NFL with AJL and the Double A, where we talk about college football every week on the show. Appreciate everybody tuning in on the week of Christmas on a Friday night. You couldn't have been anywhere else in the world. Again, hope y'all had a blessed Christmas Eve, an amazing Christmas. Please make sure to like and share the stream. Tell somebody about the podcast if you think they would enjoy it. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell. The QR code will take you to every bit of social media and podcast content that we've got at the NFL with AJL on all platforms. And of course, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs, buying a home, selling a home, investing in real estate. This is the team that you need to work with. You can get on their exclusive newsletter. You can get on their monthly neighborhood market reports to tell you about a specific activity of a property, or you can even start going to their new monthly real estate meetups to network with professionals, find your next or first real estate deal, and much more. Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Carson Beck is out for the year after undergoing throwing elbow surgery, specifically his right UCL. Thankfully, he's expected to make a full recovery. He'll resume throwing in the spring. His surgery was actually performed by Neil Elatrosh out of LA. Everybody who knows sports medicine knows who Neil Elatrosh is, more formally when he was able to work on Aaron Rodgers' Achilles, and he even worked on Cam Akers' Achilles when he was able to come back. Unfortunately, Cam did tear that other one. But I think the burning question here, Alan, is do you think Georgia can win it all without the quarterback that got them to the SEC title game and helped them secure a first-round bye? I wouldn't say he got them there, but he helped them to accomplish both of those things.
He definitely did help, but I think they'll be fine. The reason why, like I said before, Georgia's quarterback room, I think
I wish I
Kirby,
was as sold on it being elite as you are.
I
I love to hear it though, bro.
I think Gunner will be fine.
Yeah.
I think Kirby prepares his guys to get, their hands dirty when they need to.
For sure.
And Gunner delivered. I mean, when he was there, yes, he did have that bad interception, but overall they got the win.
Yep.
And that's what I'm concerned about going forward. Carson Beck, very questionable throughout the season. How much was that Mike Bobo? How much was that Carson Beck? I don't know.
Right.
But what I do know is that with Carson Beck out, it's the next man up.
Yep.
And Georgia's not just going to roll over for Notre Dame, man. And they're not going to roll over if they do beat Notre Dame. They're not going to roll over for Penn State either. So let's say they do beat Notre Dame. Let's say they do beat Penn State. Guess where they are? They're right at it again.
Oregon. Yep.
They're right at it again. So,
bring it on,
and who am I going to pick in that situation? I'm going to pick Kirby Smart, man, because he's seasoned. He knows what to do. He knows how to get his guys prepared for battle. I think Gunner is fine. I think he will be fine. I think, I don't know if Carson's going to travel with the team and just be on the sideline for moral support, kind of like Jordan Travis was for us.
I'm sure he will. He already
had
his surgery.
Right. I think he can help Gunner with the playbook, with questions he may have or concerns. I think he can help him in those situations. And yes, Carson did get better throughout the year, game to game.
Right.
He did have 9 or 11 straight interceptions or something like that through
Yeah.
4 or 5
All of
games.
his picks came in that like 4 to
That
5 game
window, yeah,
stretch. Yep. I think he had
exactly.
8 picks in 3 games at one point. I mean, it was awful. It was fucking
Right.
awful.
And then he, he turned it around. He got better. But then ultimately, he suffered that horrible injury, and I think he will come back next season and have another year of eligibility. Would it be will it be Georgia? I'm not sure. Will he sit behind somebody else? I'm not sure. But I think he is coming back. But with that being said, I think Georgia's just fine because they still got their whole supporting cast around them. They got Gunnar Stockton, and all his guys that are around him are just going to make him more confident. And I, like I said, I ultimately seeing Georgia go into distance here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you, man. I think Georgia will be okay as well. Much like you said, Kirby gets his guys prepared for battle. They've been up against adversity. They've dealt with injuries this year. They've dealt with the most drops in the country. They've dealt with the toughest schedule. So it's like next thing up, next man up. I mean, what's going to be next for these guys? And I do think that they can win it all without Carson Beck, because my initial thought this year was if Georgia does not win the national championship, at the time I was thinking it will be because of Carson Beck, because he was not making great decisions. I mean, the fumbles, everything. It
Correct.
was just outrageous. We saw what it was happening. And when you take a look at a guy, well, first let's look at here's a guy.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
I know you were. I know you were. I fucking know you were. So you look at this year for Carson Beck. 3,500 yards, 3,485 yards, 28 touchdowns, 12 picks, 65% completion. But you look at last year, 3,941 yards, 24 touchdowns, but half the amount of interceptions and about an 8% higher completion percentage. Now, of course, last year Georgia lost the SEC title game and missed the college football playoffs, versus this year Carson Beck has done the opposite, helped them win the SEC championship, however you want to say that, when he went out at halftime. And obviously they were able to get the
Right.
CFP berth, which at least you can give him the credit of that, because he was able to play in those games against you still can't get over what I said, can you? I see you over there. Play the way that he did against Georgia Tech, play the way that he did against Tennessee. I mean, Carson Beck was still making plays in those games, and there's nothing you can really say outside of that. But when you look at Gunnar Stockton and what he brings to the table, being a a dual threat quarterback, being able to actually move in the pocket. And I think he's going to have a hell of an arm. Again, when you give Georgia, when
Yeah,
you
I do
give
too.
Kirby Smart, I know it's not, 3.5 weeks from the moment the game stopped that they're getting a practice, but overall, at least 2.5, 2 to 3 weeks of preparation here. And they're going to use that first round bye to their advantage. So I do believe Georgia can win it all without Carson Beck. I trust what Kirby
I do too.
is going to prepare for Gunnar. I trust the weapons that are around Gunnar Stockton. It will be because of Mike Bobo. I personally believe if Gunnar is not able to do it now. I know that's kind of going out on a limb because we haven't seen Gunnar play outside of a second half in Texas, but he did what he needed to do.
Right.
He was well enough with the minimal playbook. Yes, he had an ugly INT, but he's running towards the goal line to get the win for Georgia. Georgia does not have the handoff to win that football game without Gunnar. I'm not calling Gunnar Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I'm
Absolutely.
not
You put him
calling
in the
him
position to win.
exactly. I'm not calling him an all-world quarterback. But I do believe that
You just
Georgia,
need him to be
right,
serviceable.
we just need him to be serviceable. And I believe Georgia's running back room is now healthy. This offensive line is hopefully healthy. This defense is going to get it right again with having all this time off. And I think Georgia will be fine without Carson Beck. Now, how bad do you think Carson Beck's injury hurts his draft stock? He's more than likely going to miss the combine and pro days due to recovering. He's not supposed to throw till about maybe middle to March or maybe middle April, roughly. Spring of 25 is what the school reports are saying. But how bad, if any, do you think this
Right.
hurts Carson Beck's draft stock?
I don't know, man. I really don't in this situation because I'm not so sure that he will
Yeah,
declare for the
I don't
draft.
think he technically
Given
has.
this situation, given the
Right,
circumstance. Because look, he hasn't had his best
right.
season at all. He has not. And I think Carson Beck's a little bit better than what he's put out there
Yeah,
this year. I think he can be. I think he has that
right.
potential. So even if he did declare for the draft, I think it would hurt him
Yeah.
just a little bit because I mean I don't think he's all that to begin with just this season alone. I don't think the NFL scouts are going to be like too impressed. I think he'd be a
Right.
backup at best.
Right. I'm kind of with you,
Now
bro.
if he
I'm kind of with you.
let's say he waits another year. Let's say he plays the 25 season and goes into the draft
Yep.
in 26. He can have a lights out
Yep.
year next year, whether it be at Georgia if he wins the spot again, or if he transfers and goes somewhere else and has a great lights out season. You know, who knows? I hope he stays because I think Carson Beck is a little bit better than what he's let
Yeah.
on this season. Because we saw his reformation throughout the season. He transformed. He had that bad 5-game window and then he transformed into something else. And it's like, I need that guy every Saturday. I need that guy that you transformed into every Saturday. Bring
Yep.
him up here. And I think, it turns around into a different look. I think he could be a good draft prospect after that. He plays 9-10 games like that. He's a good draft prospect.
Yeah.
But that's just my case on it. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, very good takes there, and I think it's a great point. I didn't even really think about that. I do believe Carson Beck can be better than what he's led on this season. Now he did again when you look at the schedule of last year to the schedule of this year, it really has a change. I mean, over 50, 75 spots Georgia jumped in terms of strength of schedule. So he did play against stiffer competition, 12-team playoff, new SEC alignment. So, but I agree. I do believe he could be better with the right coordinator, with the right coaching staff. And, we can kind of say that about any player, but Carson Beck has shown those
Right.
glimpses of promise, no doubt. I do believe it does hurt his draft stock some because I believe if Beck were to go this year, he could run the risk of being undrafted. 100%. I
Yeah.
said what I said. I believe Carson Beck could run the risk of being
He would
undrafted
go late.
if he goes into the 2024 draft because of the decision making that he's seen. That doesn't get you drafted on Sundays. That does not get you
No,
playing
it
on
doesn't.
Sundays, and it's going to be a con as for you getting drafted in the NFL. He could come back, get that other year of eligibility, like you said he has, to his claim. But when you look at injury on the throwing elbow, thankfully, you can come back in the spring. You have the surgery performed by a very well-renowned, doctor in Neil Elatrosh. But if you can rest, recover, let the Cam Wards, the Shedeur Sanders, the Quinn Ewers, the potential Jackson Darts go to the NFL and really just maybe be that unicorn for next year. Not that you're that type of player, but really just be that only quarterback that's really getting talked about, kind of like the year when it was the Desmond Ritters and the Will Levises and the Malik
Yeah.
Willises, kind of go in the draft in one of those years. But I do believe it does hurt his draft stock. I think at best Carson Beck is a third, fourth round pick, but I could see him, being drafted somewhere around there, if not lower, and potentially undrafted as well with how it played out. But I want to see you guys in the chat and in the comments. I don't know if it's maybe not coming through on Restream, but y'all get in there on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube as we get into the last.
He can't be worse than DJ Huey Underlay.
Nah, that was rough.
He declared for
Are
the
you
draft,
serious?
right?
Ugh.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I
Ugh.
read that somewhere. I'm like, somebody will draft him thinking they can fix him. That's just what I
Yeah.
keep thinking. Give me just 1 second. I gotta go
Yeah,
check
you're
on something
good.
real quick.
Yeah, he is going into the NFL draft. Yep. Yes, DJ Uyagale announced on social media that he will be entering the 2025 draft. In his final season, he threw for 1,065 yards and 4 touchdowns before suffering a season-ending injury to his throwing hand. In total, he finished his college career with 10,000 passing yards, 82 touchdowns, and 30 picks. I mean, he's a big guy, 6'4", 252, but his decision-making and his mechanics are rough. I mean, he is a guy who could possibly go undrafted. I mean, DJ Uyagale is just, it's rough the way that he looked at Florida State. Very, very rough the way that he looked at Florida State. We're going to give Alan a second to come back here on the show, but we'll just kind of keep some conversation and talk going as we get through everything. But again, I want to see y'all down in the chat, down in the comments. Carson Beck out for the year after undergoing throwing surgery. Excuse me, undergoing surgery on his throwing elbow. Let me Let me slow down a little bit. Do you think Georgia can win it all without Carson Beck as quarterback one? How bad does that hurt Carson Beck's draft stock? We did go over Ohio State and Oregon. Ohio State's favored by 2.5. Allen and I both have Ohio State winning. Allen and I both have Georgia winning against Notre Dame. Georgia 2.5-point favorite, and we both have Texas and Penn State coming away victorious
Sorry about that.
as being one of the. You're good, man. As being one of the bigger favorites of the weekend. Any final thoughts on Carson Beck before we move on to DeSean Jackson?
Other than that, man, like I said, I'll just reiterate. I think you should stay another season.
Yeah.
Bottom line, whether it's with Georgia or somebody else, I think he needs. I think he's a lot better than what he let on.
It would be really weird to see that guy at like Mizzou or something.
Like fucking Mizzou.
Yeah, like Mizzou or like
Eli Drinkowitz would take him in a heartbeat. Believe me, I know.
If we were to see him at like Texas A&M or something, I don't know, bro. That's probably Marcel Reed's job for sure.
Weird.
But all right, last topic.
Like us with Luke Crum in hockey went to Mississippi State because we got Thomas Castellanos.
Yeah, I'm excited to chop up that transfer portal news. On the next show, we'll actually have it. All right, last topic of the show, episode 86 of the NFL with AJL, always having the AA college football segment on here at the NFL with AJL on all social media platforms. Another NFL legend is headed to coach college football, specifically at an HBCU, Delaware State football. The Hornets over in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, the MEAC for HBCUs, will be getting the gift of DeSean Jackson coming over to be the head coach of Delaware State football. Last seen in 2022 with the Baltimore Ravens. Hasn't really had much of his career since his, about 5 to 10 years in the league between Philadelphia and Washington. Do you think DeSean Jackson stepping into this coaching role at an HBCU, you think he'll be able to kind of follow in the Coach Prime footsteps like we saw? I mean, I feel like that's kind of the burning question. We see some of these NFL legends now going to coach or if you're talking, I can't hear you.
My bad. Yeah, it froze up for a minute. Deion is definitely setting a trend with like the former player coaches. I mean, not to say that it hadn't happened before. It definitely has. But he's setting a trend. And with Michael Vick going to Norfolk State, D-Jack, who also played with Michael Vick in Philadelphia, I want to know if his football IQ is sufficient enough. I think he'll be fine. And especially at a HBCU, at a let's just say at a lesser known school, Delaware State. This is a good place to start. Now, let's say you have a lights out season, you get them undefeated. Somebody's going to come knocking at your door and be like, hey, maybe an FCS school. They're going to be like, hey, Charlotte's going to come knocking at your door like, hey,
right.
Like Eastern Carolina, FAMU, somebody's going to be like, hey, you want a job? So, it's all depending on how he does. And I think he'll be fine. He's a great receiver, fantastic receiver as far as I'm concerned. I love DeSean Jackson. I loved watching him play. I think he'll work out. A lot of people aren't sold on the former players as coaches ideal, but I mean, they know the game just as well as anybody. So why not give him a shot? And I just love it for him. I love it for his family. It's a great opportunity for him. And I'm excited to hear the news, about how he does throughout his season, just like I am with Michael Vick. I'm excited to see, because that's my second all-time favorite quarterback. I'm excited to see how well they do in the college level of athletics at the coaching position. And I think he'll do just fine.
Yeah, I think he'll do well too, man. I think he'll do well also, especially like you said, it's a great place to start. No slight towards HBCUs. We know not all of the money is necessarily pushed that way. They don't get necessarily the best marketing or the best broadcasting.
They got good scholarship.
Right. And when you look at a guy like DeSean Jackson, who has been able to have a great NFL career, he will be in the NFL Hall of Fame. We know he's one of the best deep threats in the league, actually still holds the record for most 60-plus and 80-plus yard catches in NFL history, and that was the name of his game. I mean, he had one one season, 47 catches for over 1,000 yards. Are you kidding me?
Mhm.
47
Remember
catches?
that 70-yard pass to Michael
Always.
Vick?
One of the best plays in NFL history. Threw that thing on a rope. I think it was the first play of the game. Loved watching Vic and
Yep.
DeSean Jackson light it up, man. It was actually the athletic director's first hire. Senior Associate Vice President for Athletics and Wellness, Tony Tucker, announced that DeSean Jackson will become the next head football coach at Delaware State University. Again, it was his first hire as AD, just now getting to that position. And, much like we discussed with Bill Belichick and Michael Vick, is it going to be that case where DeSean Jackson can recruit and politic his way to HBCU success like Coach Prime did with, obviously he had a disposal of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and all. But I think that DeSean Jackson can kind of take along on that trend, like you said, that Deion Sanders has done, and when you see NFL legends go to these HBCUs, it's hard not to want the same thing for them. It's hard not to think that they can mimic the same success or at least try to follow in the footsteps of such, which I think, a guy like DeSean Jackson just solely playing in the NFL beforehand, can he have that great Tennessee State season like Eddie George just came out of? Can he be the way that Coach Prime was? How is it going to be with Bill Belichick, who I think might have the best chance out of these, 3 recent hires? Obviously, Bill not going to an HBCU, and I don't think that's the sole reason that he'll have a better chance before anyone takes off on that point. It's the fact that he's Bill Belichick, and we know what he's capable of. The second winningest NFL, literally the second winningest NFL coach in history. And, D-Jax will also be able to use this to springboard his way to really higher levels of one? Yeah, Don Shula is the winningest one. And that's why I thought Bill was going to make his way back to the NFL. Yes, and that's why I thought Bill Belichick was going to make his way back to the NFL, because he wanted to be the all-time winningest coach, ahead of Don Shula. But I really think that G-Jax, again, can use this to springboard to higher levels of coaching, whether he wants to do that or not. All eyes will at least be more on a program like Delaware State. And I feel bad for not mentioning that with, even Michael Vick. All eyes will now be on more of a program like Norfolk State. It's going to be there for Bill at UNC, even because UNC is, one, it's not an HBCU, but two, they're a blue blood basketball school. So that's going to be harder to get recruits there. But, nonetheless, Michael Vick, DeSean Jackson taking on, kind of in the Coach Prime reigns with the HBCUs. And I'm excited to see it, man. And when you look at Delaware State just really needing to revitalize kind of that part of their athletic program. D-Jax played for Philly, for Baltimore, for Washington. Those are actually primary recruiting emphasis points for Delaware State as well. Area. Yep, 100%. So they want to be able to have the pickings and actually be able to go in and recruit there. And even
Maryland, DC, Virginia,
Yep. I'm trying to find this part here. I'm actually on Delaware's dsuhornets.com on their
beautiful
website.
Area up there too.
Here we go. The hiring of DeSean Jackson concludes an exhaustive search that emphasized the university's renewed commitment to athletic transformation. 2 years ago, the university began its athletic transformation project, focused primarily on football with a $1 million gift by former scholar athlete Steve Ewing, who was the class of '83, and a $9 million grant from the state of Delaware. The centerpiece of the effort is an indoor training facility for all scholar athletes at the university and key upgrades to Alumni Stadium. The overall project is expected to cost $25 to $30 million. Quote, "We no longer dream big dreams. We are in execution mode, which means we have the right vision, the right talent, and a set of inspirational leaders who can see the road ahead for a university whose time has come. DeSean will be one of those leaders throughout our institution," said university president Tony Allen. So definitely a bright spot, a nice Christmas present for a university.
And he was kind of a mentor on Baltimore's, roster when he was there.
Yeah.
The brief time he was there, he was kind of a mentor to all the young guys. He
still averaged 22 yards of reception in his last year in the NFL.
Right. But he was always on the sideline interacting with the fellow players, and it was always good. Because he was that NFL veteran presence on the team.
Mm-hmm. Very much agreed, man. That was episode 86 of the NFL with AJL. We appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight. Hope y'all had a blessed Christmas. Hope y'all had an amazing Christmas Eve. By the next time we see you guys, it will be just before the new year. So y'all make sure to tap in, as we're going to be talking everything new college football personnel, transfer portal, and then shortly after we'll be jumping on to review the quarterfinals games, give you the semifinals prediction. So we've got a ton of content coming your way that we've already planned out on our end as we get into the new year. Y'all please make sure to tell somebody about the podcast, like and share the stream wherever you may be watching, subscribe on YouTube, hit that bell. Of course, the QR code that Alan has pointed to, it's every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. You can drop us a super like, a super thanks, a super chat, super whatever to donate monetarily to the show. You can DM us on social media if you like, so we can get that hooked up for you. Of course, buy and sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate. Don't forget to get with the best real estate team in the state of Georgia. We love you guys. We need you guys. Again, Merry Christmas. Thank y'all for sticking with us through 2024 as we brought out the new segment on the NFL with AJL called the Double A, where we go over college football content every week.